thanking Mukhopadhyay sir for actually explaining a lot of things at a broad levels. And here is an example where we'll be looking focused on housing that has been happening through the last decade in Orissa. And you can see what are the changes that are happening, and for the better, for the worse, all in place here. So Orissa as a state profile, there is a population of about 4 crores and 96 lakh families, wherein we have only about 60.67% urbanization. And more so, as Professor Mukhopadhyay was saying, it stands fourth in terms of urban growth due to mode of census towns being included. Within that, we have, within the urban population, we have only about 23%, but that's a very significant amount. When it comes to numbers, have a look, it comes to about 3.5 lakh population which lives in the slum areas. In terms of housing shortage, what we have is the total urban households being, this is as per SECC survey, 12 lakhs, in which the annual growth rate has been 2.11%. Of the 12 lakh, it is about 6,86,000, more than 56%, which is of shortage. The rest being housing stock in terms of SECC, it is being classified as those that dwell in owned Pakka houses. So urban housing projects in Orissa that have been going on in the recent past include the IHSDP, the BSUP and the Rajiv Awas Yojana. These are mostly individual houses on own land where they have the records of rights. There are others where slums have been found to be tenable, where in situ redevelopment has taken place, which are mostly G+3 and G+4 structures. And in some cases where slums are not tenable, relocation projects have been designed, again with G+3, G+4 structures. The major findings in these projects have been that the basic objective of all these projects has been holistic development for both housing as well as basic infrastructure. However, the progress and the take of the slum dwellers has been very slow. We have seen IHSDP, which was sanctioned, which started off in 2009, and then these were sanctioned way back in 2012. Even after 4 years, there is only 73% dwelling units are complete. We see the reasons why these are not getting complete. And Rajiv Awas Yojana, about only 45% are complete. The primary reasons for this include where individual houses are coming up in own land. Some of the beneficiaries, especially in a context like Orissa, which is reeling under abject poverty, the beneficiaries are extremely poor and are not able to invest in housing. In many cases, the beneficiaries have attempted far larger houses because mostly these are these are semi-urban areas and non-engineered houses. So when we are talking of these people able to avail the services of architects and engineers, they're far removed from them, and therefore they believe on the mason who is like the architect, engineer, builder all together. And the mason invariably tries to build a larger house and being ambitious, and then the people are not able to complete the house constructions. Sometimes contractors have left the works prior to completion because of progress delays and escalation in prices of materials and labor. Most houses do not have toilets, and even if they have toilets, as Professor Mukhopadhyay was saying, it is more tanks than septic tanks. Forget about soap pits, etc. So those generally also remain unutilized due to the lack of behavioral change to actually use toilets. So designs of the houses where contractors have been involved are culturally not sensitive to the way of living. These are also mainly rural areas, so they have their way of living, style of living. Those houses, with toilets attached to the living room or the bedrooms and etc., and kitchens next to the veranda sometimes are not acceptable. In group housing projects, the process for land clearance and making provisions for transit accommodations have been extremely slow. These days, more of late, I've been working in PMAY with the government, and I've been looking at this as a challenge for from the point of urban local bodies, how they feel on their part to actually get the land cleared, evict them, and actually make provisions for transit accommodations, etc. It is a Herculean task that they have to face. Works have been assigned to different agencies, and the quality of construction works actually vary depending on the agency involved, especially the engineers, etc. But they are mostly very poor. I'll explain through pictures. And the process of ensuring beneficiary contribution in all of these projects has been a huge challenge where contractors have been involved or agencies have been entrusted with the work. For individual houses that we saw, one was owner-driven and one was contractor-driven. The pros and cons include, the first one, there is a beneficiary participation ensured right from designing of the house. But in contractor-driven, it is more forced to adopt a model design that was developed by the ULB or the contractor. The quality of construction varies depending on the mason appointed. Here it is mainly based on the contractor. The speed of construction is generally very slow, and here it is generally fast. The most important point from the ULB end is that when it is owner-driven, it sounds very good. There's a beneficiary participation, but from the ULB, from the perspective of the engineer who is in charge of in the municipal corporation or the municipality or the NSC, it has been extremely challenging for him to motivate the beneficiary and to complete the construction work in a time-bound manner. Whereas with contractors, through review meetings and etc. and imposing penalty clauses, this is a little faster. So in Odisha, as I said, from 2009 work orders have been given, and in 2006 such individual houses are still lying incomplete, some even at plinth level, because the beneficiary is not able to put in his or her contribution. So here is a beneficiary in front of you from Jura municipality up in North Odisha. You can see the lady and her ailing son, she's a widow, and their houses in the last 4-5 years has only come up to ground level. And they don't know how to complete the house. The project has to be wound up by December as the Government of India prescribes. So it's a task on the Government of Odisha to wind up this project. Whether that money has to be recovered from her because she has been paid the first installment by the municipality, or how should she complete the house construction. So perhaps you can see the house where she is staying at present. For her livelihood, food is more of a priority than a house. So should we really select the ultra poor? We'll decide. We have the housing for all policy in place, but probably the ones who are ultra poor need to be reconsidered in our entire housing discussions. Here is another beneficiary in Behrampur in South Odisha. See the difference in cultural way of living. Here it is more of row housing, and the houses are of width. You will be alarmed, 3.5 feet to 8 feet width of the house, and the length is about 70 feet or 80 feet. So these types of houses, wherein a particular beneficiary has been able to construct a 2-story house as well. Here is another house in western part of Odisha near Chhattisgarh. Believing on the mason, they have started a 634 square feet carpet area dwelling unit, whereas you were supposed to do about 250 to 60 square feet house, and therefore it is lying incomplete at the roof level for the last 2 years. So such houses need to be completed before the project is wound by December 31st. Here is a group housing project under Rajiv Awas Yojana. These are multi-story G+3, G+4 buildings being executed by nominated and well-deserved firms and companies. You can see a column, and you can see the clear cover on one side and the other side as to how the completing is going on. When they are clustered, all remain inside, so we don't see what is happening inside. This is the tying of reinforcements. For some of you who might be interested, look at the column bars, vertical bars and the horizontal bars, how they are moving in the junctions. It's really alarming that this is what is going on with respect to housing there. Now looking at housing for all, we have these centrally sponsored schemes. The first one is for individual housing on individual plots where record of rights of land exists. That is called beneficiary-led housing. The second one is slum redevelopment, which is in situ project. And the third one is affordable housing in partnership, which are relocation projects, which is in partnership with private sector. The central sector scheme, there is another one, which is the affordable housing through credit linked subsidy, which is for EWS and LIG families. They can avail loans. I'll just explain very briefly, since we had already a session on PMAY in the morning. So the first one, the Government of India gives a 1.5 lakh grant and the state assistance is 0.5 lakh. So 2 lakh is something which the beneficiary gets as a grant in installments. In the second one, in situ, the beneficiary gets a transit accommodation and a Government of India grant of 1 lakh. The third one, where the beneficiary has to relocate, they have to, they get a grant of 1.5 lakh. In both the second and third case, the beneficiary has to pay 1.5 lakh to avail the house. And the fourth case, up to 6 lakh rupees as a loan, there is an upfront subsidy, and the EMI is calculated based on 6.5% for a period of 15 years. Odisha has formulated its own policy, Housing for All, which has 7 models, including rental housing.